Welcome to the 76 Capital Leadership Series. My name is Wayne Kimmel, and I'm your host and managing partner of 76 Capital, the sports tech venture capital fund. On this show, I interview top sports entrepreneurs, athletes, and executives who are truly shaping and many times changing the overall sports landscape. You can follow me on Twitter at Wayne Kimmel, and definitely follow 76 Capital across all social media networks, including subscribing to our YouTube channel as well as our podcast. Before we get started, we got to give a quick shout out to our producer back at the station. There he is, Ty Jackson, doing a great job. And of course, Vince is doing a good job making sure that everything gets done on the back end. Great job, guys. Keep making it happen. And remember, if you're an entrepreneur and you're building a company in the sports industry, we're trying to do the next thing in the sports betting, esports, sports media, and sports tech industries, reach out to us at 76 Capital. We would love to hear from you and see if there are ways we can help each other. Now let's get to it. We have a great guest today. We have Christian Ferri, the CEO of NFT PRO, the #1 enterprise white label solution for NFTs across all these major global brands that we're going to talk about today. Christian is an expert in the NFT world, in the world of blockchain. And you can follow Christian on Twitter at blockchain Maest. That's blockchain Maest. You got to follow him. Now, let's get going here. Christian, welcome to our 76 Capital Leadership Series.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Wayne.
Really excited to have you on the show, and really excited to have you now part of our 76 Capital family as one of our new portfolio companies. And so let's get started. I think it would be great to share with our audience, what is NFT PRO and how did you create this business?
Yeah, absolutely. So NFT PRO provides really the first white label solution for large companies, large brands. And what we found is, when we talk about NFTs, it's very similar to v-commerce, virtual commerce, right? So there are digital products that are being authenticated using this NFT technology. And it's very similar to what happened back in the 90s with e-commerce, electronic commerce. And back then, you have two groups. You have the small brands, right? And the small brands were selling their products through, third-party marketplaces, like eBay, for example. But the large brands, like the Nike and the Adidas, they wanted to have an environment that they could control, right? Under their website, they could control the process, the analytics, ensure brand identity was, matched from their environments. And so effectively, there was a company back then called GSI Commerce that handled all the white label for e-commerce for all the major brands. Effectively, we're doing the same thing. We're providing that controlled environments that match the brand identity of these brands, that allow them to launch their own NFT campaigns directly from their website with enterprise-grade features like KYC, AML, GDPR compliance, and many more.
Well, Christian, you mentioned GSI Commerce, and being a Philly guy and literally one block away from Michael Rubin's office now with Fanatics, we know GSI Commerce and know that story well. And, certainly it was a brilliant move when Michael and Mike Golden created GSI Commerce and became the place for all of the big brands when they wanted to get into the e-commerce industry. And when it was something that was it was kind of this world that most people didn't know, and they went in and were able to help all those big brands. And now they've built what Michael has now done and taken the sports brands and created what he's doing around Fanatics is incredible. So we certainly hope what you're doing from the NFT perspective, it turns into what Michael's been able to do. But I think we should really do this right now, just for our audience here on our 76 Capital Leadership Series, really explain what is an NFT? What are NFTs? What are these letters even mean?
Yeah. So great question, Wayne. So, at a more basic element, NFT means non-fungible token. And the story came about the fact that, in the crypto world, you have tokens, right? You have currencies. And so currencies like Bitcoin. And let's say, for example, we take Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a coin, right? That it's fungible, meaning can be exchanged for the same value. One Bitcoin equal to one Bitcoin, right? So I give one Bitcoin to Wayne, he gives me a Bitcoin back from his own stash, and we're even. Non-fungible means being able to trade things that have unique features or unique characteristics, right? So non-fungible means non-equal, non-tradable, right? It's something that has a unique ID, right? And effectively, an NFT is nothing more than a unique ID, a unique identifier. And so it's a piece of a string of code, right? That it's a unique identifier, that it's unique to that object. And so this unique identifier is then tied, right, linked to either a picture, a video, music, sometimes even a VIN number of a car, a physical product. And this package, right, this unique identifier tied to this file is then recorded on a distributed ledger, right, on a database, distributed database that can be seen by anyone. And so the combination of this ID tied to a file recorded on the distributed ledger, right, that it's can be seen by anyone, basically creates an economical dynamic where this becomes an asset that is unique, that is authentic, and has value, right? Holds the value, right? Because now you have a way to verify that it was actually issued by a large company like Nike, for example, on a certain date, on a certain time, that it's original and everybody can see it. And so those three elements allow, digital assets to hold the value. And that's pretty revolutionary if you think about it, because before NFTs, any sorts of files on the internet would not hold their value. Why? Because you could put any picture or files on it and anyone could recreate it. So the more supply, the price goes to zero. The NFTs just add a layer on top of the internet where they're able to recreate the dynamics of real commerce, physical commerce, but in the digital world. So that's the reason why NFTs are so important for the future, right, of commerce, which we tag in the industry as virtual commerce, right? Things for metaverses, gaming, augmented reality, virtual reality. And my prediction is that NFTs will power any sorts of transaction of digital records in 5 to 10 years span, right? Files, documents, real estate, assets, and so on. Anything that is over the internet that needs to be authenticated and digitally authentic and unique.
Well, Christian, that's extremely helpful, and we're really excited to have you on our 76 Capital Leadership Series, the CEO of NFT PRO, the #1 enterprise white-labeled solution for NFTs for global brands. And Christian, you talk about what NFTs are, but maybe give a specific example of some of the brands that you're working with today. You mentioned Nike, but I know that you're working with Adidas and you have some other really exciting brands that you've been working with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're working with category leaders. Obviously, the brands are really, are interested in our solutions are large companies, right? And that's our target. And so we work with category leaders across fashion, apparel, automotive, luxury, and sports. And we're basically creating their v-commerce environments, right? So traditionally speaking, these companies have a website, they have an e-commerce side of things where they sell their merchandise, right? The jerseys, the hats, the bags, whatever it is. Or sometimes they don't even have, right? For example, like cars, right? We have a couple of major exotic car brands. They sell merchandise around the brand, right? About the car brand. But we're basically empowering them to kind of have.
Who are some of those brands?
So we can mention it, but because we're launching in Q4, right? I'd rather kind of keep it, under wrap until we have the big splash. But these are really like the category leader around luxury car, right? So exotic names, that you can imagine, right? So there's very few in the world you can actually count on your fingers, right? But you'll see an announcement coming up in a few weeks, right? And this is actually pretty exciting because you can see these major brands are realizing the importance of this commerce, right? And they realize that it's not just a fad, right? And that's the most important thing to realize now, that at the beginning we thought about $69 million Beeple to be a fad. Sure, I don't know if we're going to be able to kind of see another $70 million sale of a picture, but is the mental shift, the cultural changes becoming evident, where younger generations and even older generations are spending more and more time in the digital life, and realizing that as they spend time in their digital life, they crave identity. They crave their identity to show up and show off in the digital world. And part of that is about owning assets, right? Collectibles or things that you put on your avatar. And so with these brands, we're really kind of not only offering a white label for them to offer e-commerce, but the use case is actually what's interesting. It's not just about selling a picture, but it's about setting up games around the brand, like build your own car brand, where you have randomized packs with different sets of wheels, chassis, exhaust, colors, and so on. And then you can assemble it and play with your, against your friends and win, right? And so that's another element that, they're realizing that it's not just a moneymaker for them, a new way to get a high margin moneymaker. If you think about building and selling a car or a bag, you need to have buildings and people and manufacturing and machinery and so here we're talking about all digital, so the profits are through the roof. But to them is also important from a generational change out standpoint, where these digital elements are very keen among the youngsters, and they see this as an opportunity for them to engage the younger generations. And so I think that's a crucial point here, that this NFT can really be big for these, especially the bigger brands that have been around for a while. They have loyalized a set of demographics, and they realize that if they don't engage the younger demographics, they might be out of business pretty soon, right? And so that's actually one of the powerful things that NFTs can actually power.
Well, Christian, it's obvious that you're one of the experts in the world when it comes to the NFT industry and the blockchain world. I mean, so what I would love to do is share with have you share with our audience some of your background, even going back to where you grew up and how you kind of will tell your story, how you got up to here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from a little town near Venice in Italy. And so I realized soon enough that I really sucked at singing and I suck at rowing. So I could not make it as a gondolier. That's just a joke, a very dry joke. But I moved to the States about when I was 20. So originally from Italy, so I had this network around brands, right? Because Europe, France, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Northern Europe, they're all made about, it's all about brands and soccer and sports, right? Long story short, I came out here and I moved up through the ranks, and I spent several years as a practice lead at one of the big four consulting firms here in the Bay Area. And so I worked around product innovations and process improvements, and that's where I got my first exposure to DLT, or what's commonly referred to as blockchain. DLT stands for decentralized ledger technologies, right? When we say blockchain, we just mean one element, but it could be, side chains, could be DAGs. So the right terminology would be to say DLT, decentralized ledger technology. So long story short, we started kind of doing some projects. One of the first projects that I got involved with was with Walmart. If you remember, back in 2014, they got a big lawsuits out of China for selling fake pork. And so there was a product that we worked on in partnership with IBM, was called Smart Food. And so there was the ability to kind of track contractors and subcontractors in the meat supply chain to ensure that the quality was there, right? And so that kind of got everything started. And so being one of the first, people in this space, I would say, I started consulting on the sides. So on my day job, I was, a suit and tie for a big four consulting firm. And in the afternoon and evening, I was actually tinkering away with a bunch of startups. And the word got out, and I started consulting more and more and more, ended up consulting some Fortune 50s around the world, to the point that, I started kind of liking that more than my day job. So I quit my Big Four role, and then started consulting, right? So I've been advising over 40 companies around, what's DLT, how do we integrate it, how do we use it, how do we raise capital through it. And back in 2017, when NFTs came out, I was mesmerized. I thought that the NFTs were the best inventions after the internet. And I started a company back then that would work with brands to tokenize physical products. That's how we got started. And then from physical products, we ended up expanding into video games. So bringing brands and video games together and help them create these NFTs that people could buy inside the games and dress their avatars and show up and so on. And then about a year ago, some of our clients said, hey, look, this whole NFTs is blowing up. You're already doing NFT. You're one of the pioneers. Can you help us launch our own NFTs? Because we want to launch it from our own sites. And so it was a strategic decision back then with our chairman to basically enable this functionality. We reuse basically 80% of the backend stack that we already built with the other products to kind of build NFT Pro. And so that's a white label that we offer today. And that thing kind of really took off, right? So we started signing up some really major brands and being involved in some very major projects that are coming online Q4 this year. And interestingly enough, even though we offer these solutions, right, for white label and gaming and digital twins, there's always, ideas coming from clients and say, hey, for example, one of our car brands, they have 90,000 cars around the world, and they can only track 6,000. And so they said, we really want to have visibility around like who owns on a secondary market, right? Because these are pretty expensive cars. They're like, $500K, $300K, $2 million, right? These are very expensive cars. And so the point is, think about this as a supply chain problem where you can actually provide clients with an NFT, an app, like a passport. And this passport gets updated every time a transaction happens, either a sale or a maintenance or restorations or prizes that are won at competitions of these cars. And the company has all the trackability built in, so they can see like who owns it now. Can I drive loyalty so the guy or the gal is not going to buy an Aston Martin, but is going to buy my brand later. All these things. So it's kind of morphing into more use cases, right? But they're all kind of powered by the technology that we built. So very interesting stuff. And again, it's exciting space to be in.
Well, it certainly is, and we're certainly happy to have you on our show, Christian. And I'll tell you, it's amazing. You gave us some hints on, the prices of those cars, $300,000, $500,000, $2 million. So we may have a little bit of an idea who that brand is, or at least a guess around there. So thanks for the hints around that. But there are some other brands that you've been working with and really helping that you can probably talk about that you've been working with over time now, and really helping bring them into the world of NFTs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we done several work with apparel. Right. So even back in 2017, 18, we worked with the Marquee, which is one of the largest apparel company in cycling. And we worked with definitely a few others. Most recently, we worked with Juventus, which is a major soccer club out of Europe, Juventus SC. And in that example, they didn't really have a strategy around NFTs, right? So we worked with them not only from a technology standpoint, but kind of help them kind of develop a strategy, right? And that's part of our solutions, right? The technology, but also the methodology. And walk them through our 8-step process to think about what assets are we going to pick, how we're going to pick them, how we're going to launch them, in what sequence we're going to release them. And so it was a really fantastic work, because this company, this football club, has been around for like 120 years. So it's a massive amount of assets, massive amount of IP they own. And so it was just a matter of kind of going through 120 years of history and kind of picking up like all these major like, things. And they realized at the point that, it's not just the past, right, for the brands. And that's actually probably one of the most important takeaway. If we have any from the audience listening, they're working for any brand or any company. The brand is not just the past or the present. The brand can also be the future, right? And so there's things that we're working on around the future. So how does the brand envision the future of driving or of soccer or something? If your brand is making bags, in the digital world, you don't have to make bags. You can make abstract art, artistic elements. You can make spaceships. You can make gummy bears, right? You can really make whatever you want to be. And, that's the beauty of it. You can really transform the brand and find a way to transform it to address more of the younger target demographic that you're trying to attract, and still find a way to reconnect it to the main business, right? Whether you're selling bags, cars, or you have a soccer club. So pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it really is exciting. And I'd love to go back to Juventus and from a soccer or sports perspective, right?
Yeah.
So, you think about, NFTs today, a soccer player scores an amazing goal, or in basketball, someone makes an incredible 3-pointer or a dunk or something like that. Sort of talk about how that then gets that moment, that video gets transformed into an NFT. How does that all work?
Yeah, absolutely. So usually you have a match, right? And this match is cut into pieces, right? And these pieces are referred to as moments. And these moments represent, just like you said, maybe there's a score, there's a dunk, there's some sort of kind of corner kick. And they go between 5 to 20 seconds in length, usually. And this file is then, as I was saying earlier, is linked to a unique identifier, right? The NFT. And this package, right, gets then recorded on the immutable transparent ledger blockchain. So when somebody, issue, right, let's say Juventus issues an NFTs, they're basically recording this moment, right, with the NFT on the blockchain. So it says that on January 1st, 2017, Juventus created this moment, right? And it was issued by Juventus, because you can actually see it on the record, right? And then to say that the moment is then put on an auction site or on their environments, right, on their website, like an e-commerce website, and that is being sold either at direct sales for, say, $100, or is being sold as an auction starting at a floor of $50. And then somebody, right, the user will drive to the website, will go to the website, will sign up, will browse the marketplace, will see that moment, and will purchase it. And then they will pay for it. And they can pay in credit card, or they can pay in cryptocurrencies. And once that's done, there's another record that happens. There's a transfer. So that record is that, it shows that it's been transferred from Juventus to John Doe that purchased it on February 2nd, 2017 for X amount of money. So you start building a trail that origins from a moment where Juventus actually minted that asset. So it holds the value because you can always tie it to the origin, which is the minting of that NFT by Juventus. And so whoever is going to buy it next is going to see when it was minted, by whom it was minted, how many times it has changed its hands, right, for what pricing. And that NFT can actually move outside the Juventus environment. So if they're selling things from their website, tomorrow whoever owns the NFT, they might take it outside on OpenSea, for example, right? And they might be able to expand the reach of the NFT, and more people might buy it. And the cool thing about the brands is that they also monetize on every secondary trade, right? So they issue that moment, they make their money, and then every time that somebody resell that moment, the Juventus keeps generating revenue in perpetuity, like a small percentage in perpetuity, right? So that's actually one of the beauty that brand really likes. It's a perpetual revenue stream, high margin perpetual revenue stream, I'll say.
So Christian, on that point, you have that, let's talk, you mentioned a corner kick, let's say with Juventus, right? It was this amazing corner. Guy comes flying in with a header and scores a goal, and everyone goes crazy. They run around taking their shirts off, doing all sorts of stuff, right? So when that's then minted and being, say, sold on the Juventus website now, how many copies of that moment will there be? Is it just one, or can there be multiple moments, multiple copies of that moment?
Yeah, great question, Wayne. So that kind of goes back to defining the strategy of the NFT strategy, right? And that's why it's so important for brands to don't just jump right into making NFTs on OpenSea, which is this marketplace, but really think through like the assets that you have, the sequencing, and obviously the sales setup. And what you mentioned is the sales setup. What we call the sales strategy is, what is the pricing? What is the quantity? Is going to be an auction versus a drop or a direct sales. How is it going to be set up? Is it going to be English, Dutch, reverse Dutch? Is it going to be a drop that is going to be time bound, or price bound, or quantity bound? So there's really like a sea of options that you can have, and we can help you, right? We help brands do that. Understanding that, it's almost like saying back in 2017, right? I'll give you 2007 when the iPhone came out. I'll give you this phone without the instructions. How can you go about it using it? Now everybody knows how to use it, right? So there's no instructions. But back then, if you remember when they were selling the iPhone, you had a pretty big booklet of instructions. Why? Because people needed to know. And so that's why we provide that methodology. And so it's really about the brand deciding what they do, and they rely on us to kind of have the conversation. But usually something very rare, like something really unique, that becomes a one-of-one. So it becomes like really unique, right? And that's the original. But that original might have what we call variations. So let me give you an example. That corner kick where everybody goes ballistic is the most famous corner kick of the world. It's a one-on-one, right? And that usually goes sold on auctions because there's more demand for it, right? But you can set up variations, meaning you can take that corner kick and make a picture of that corner kick, of that moment. And you can have silver, bronze, and gold, and different variations that you want. And those can be sold as drop for less price. So maybe for $50, right? Drops. So there's only 1,000 of them, or 5,000, 10,000, or you time bound that you say from 10 to 10:15 in the morning, there's going to be your window to buy it. After that, no more. So there's really like an entire strategy behind that. What usually happens is that brands or companies really don't think they have as much IP as they think they do. Usually what happens is we start with a kickoff. We go in, we give them the spreadsheet. We have a big spreadsheet where they have to kind of categorize things by category, break it down in subcategory, break it down into assets. And what happens is that, we only have like these 5 things. And it's fascinating how they kind of miss the big picture. And then we say, what about this? What about that? Because obviously we work with a lot of these companies. So we know where to go dig, right? Where the bodies are buried, where to go dig. And we come out of that meeting with 500 assets. And they were like, holy smoke. And those 500 assets, they all might have variations, right? So each of the assets might actually have variations. And each of these asset with variations will have a batch quantity, which might be 101 or might be 15,000 or 15,000. And so their mind goes, because they realize now the potential that this NFT campaign really have from an engagement or from a revenue standpoint. They start seeing the dollar sign, they start seeing the engagement, attracting the younger generations. And it's fascinating how we just kind of have to kind of take them out of them, right? Just pull them out. It's fantastic to see their face light up at the end of the day. So it's one of the joy of this job.
It must be incredible because all of a sudden you're going into their vault basically, right?
Yeah.
And saying this is the value that you believe that you basically have put on this is multiples on what you believed it was in the past because of this new world with NFTs now.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's not just about the past, but it's also the future. So think about, the future of soccer, right? Or, a brand, it's not just the past to the present, but you can become the trendsetter. That's what I'm trying to say, right? Younger generations, especially the younger generation, love trendsetters, right? And so if you really are able to kind of, detach your product from your brand and kind of rethink how your brand really speaks to the younger generation that you're trying to attract, you realize that you have such a big opportunity here to create something new, right? So if you're a soccer club, you're not going to talk about the past. You can make billions of dollars already by selling your IP in the past, right? But think about creating that, setting the trend, saying, I will tell you what our idea for our soccer club is for the future of soccer. So you start looking at robots playing in the fields, laser beams shooting up in the sky in the net. Instead of the net, you have laser beams up. You have jersey that have LED lighting with the name and the things is appearing like a LED screen or something. Like you have all this crazy stuff, which is, the imagination, which is something that, the car industry realized very early on. If every year, right, in Detroit, when they have the car show, you see all these futuristic, cars coming out, and you say, oh my God, I feel like I'm in the year 3000. And sure, it's done because from a technical standpoint, but it's mainly marketing. It's mainly promoting the brand as something else, hey, we know what's coming. We know that we're, what we can do here. And so, a lot of other industry and vertical, a lot of companies working in other industry outside car can do the same. And that's the power of NFTs. That's what the NFT can power. So you don't have to actually build a physical product. You can do that digitally with cost almost zero and still being able to kind of transact that unique value proposition for your brand.
It's so exciting, looking into the future of what this will look like. And, and one of the things that I also wanted to ask you, Christian, was and get your thoughts on, because here at 76 Capital, we're all about the future, the next thing, what's going to happen next in sports, what's going to happen next in sports betting, what's going to happen next within gaming and esports. So when you think about sports betting, when you think about esports, what are some of the applications that you see, not only today, but really when you look into the future? How's it going to be used?
Yeah, sure. So I think, when it comes to esports, for example, some of the ways that I think NFTs are taking hold right now, at least, is a very most basic concept, which is basically tokenizing a team, an esports team, right? So it's either like, NFTs or cards of their, this team, like Team Liquid, for example, or maybe tokenizing their jerseys or some of their accessories and things like that. So in a very most basic forms. I think one interesting application that I think we're going to see pretty soon is tokenizing the moments inside the games. Right. So very much like that, as with Top Shots and basketball, you'll see NFTs of moments of an amazing kill, for example, inside Fortnite, or an amazing kill inside PUBG, or an amazing jump, or something unique from one of these game players inside the video games, right? Those things can actually be, just like a video, can actually be cut up, tied to an NFT and sold. When it comes to sports betting, I think it's a very interesting questions. I think there's some experiments around the element. I mean, obviously, sports betting, the most case-based scenario is, selling an NFT and maybe bet on its value, right? That might hold, or and the cool thing about that is you can tie bets to evolution of the NFT. So there's something called dynamic NFTs. And so one of the applications that I've heard about is you have a game, people bet, and whoever gets close to or wins the bet is going to win this NFT, right? And based on how big the win is, the NFT will change, right? And so it might go from a picture to a video, right? Or might be an unveiling. So you have a blown out NFT that kind of start forming up, shaping up based on certain actions, certain bets, certain wedges. So you can really tie the betting activity with an expose inside the NFT, right? And whoever gets the bottom gets the full NFT and wins. So it's an incentive for people to kind of bet more or bet better or be more precise.
Well, we're starting to run down and, at kind of the end of our 76 Capital Leadership Series and for this show with Christian Ferri, the CEO of NFT PRO. And, Christian, it's been awesome having you on the show, but I can't, we can't sign off without talking about a couple more things. Number one, I'd love to hear a little bit about your current team, your board. I know that, it's been a really great relationship between you and my partner, Chad Stender. How did that all come together?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we were working on our gaming product, Gear, GEER.IT, we connected with your team back then, right? Somebody working at 76 Capital. We stayed in touch and so on. And I think somebody from your team, reached out a while back. I think we pushed out communications about some of the brands that we launched. I think it was Juventus at this point. And we got back on and we ended up kind of reconnecting with Chad and we had a good conversations. And then, at the time we kind of launched this second product, NFT PRO, right? The white label for the major brands. And I think it came about and we really seen eye to eye. I think one of the first calls we had Andrew Salazin, our chairman, which also is a GP at VU Ventures, which co-invested with you guys on this round. And I think we've seen eye to eye. I think it's, for things that are really on the fringe, like the NFTs, you need to have some sort of convictions, right? That something is going to happen. You have to believe in it. And I think Andrew is one of those people. I think you, Wayne, are one of these people. Like Chad is the same, right? So we kind of love you guys because of that, right? Because it takes some sort of guts to kind of do what we're doing, right? It's easy to kind of sell a bottle of water. Everybody can do it, right? But once you work at the fringe, there's a lot of people to convince. You got to break it down, make it easy. You got to fight against the masses, right? It's like what, Jeff Bezos, think about Jeff Bezos in 1995 telling people that in 10 years they would buy tuna cans off the internet. They'll look at him and just say, what are you talking about? And that's what you and I and the rest of the crew is right now. It's just like, guys, NFTs are going to be the future of commerce and they're going to power any digital transactions over the internet, whether it's real estate, assets, documents, whatever. And people will look at you and say, what is an NFT? And so you really have to try hard. And that's the beauty of it, because you feel like almost like a teacher, right? You're educating people. You're seeing the future. Sometimes you feel like Neo waking up from the numb and seeing everybody's asleep over there. They say, you have no idea what's coming. Let me tell you what it is. And you have a great opportunity to kind of shape the industry, which is actually one of the things I really like, is there's an opportunity for you to do really good things, right? And trying to kind of find use cases for this technology to actually benefit the community, the good society in a better way. At the end of the day, NFTs can be a great incentive for society, right? And so I'm sure there's going to be use cases that will help drive people's behavior in a certain way and recognize them with, these NFTs. And these NFTs can be tied to a prize. A file could be recognized to a lot of other things, to a score, right? Reputational score. So there's a lot of interesting applications that you can tie this to.
Well, we're certainly really excited to be on this journey with you. We love doing things that, are truly innovative, because if something's truly innovative, most people don't really get it yet, and that's okay.
That's right.
We'll get there. We'll get there with everybody, and people will be, everyone's going to know what an NFT is in the future. And, one of the things I know that you've also done in your career is you've written a book. Maybe give you an opportunity here to plug your book.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Wayne. I appreciate that. So I'll just it's called Blockchain and Made in Italy. A while back, the government in Italy reached out. They were forming a blockchain task force And I think Italy back then, a couple of years ago, was even chairing the blockchain task force at the European level, so in Brussels. So long story short, they reach out and say, hey, you're pretty big in the space. Would you like to kind of, chair this task force? And I obviously, I really didn't have much time. So I ended up kind of writing a book about it that kind of fits the blockchain element into the Made in Italy, specific for Italy. And I think it's kind of unique because, everybody talks about a blockchain, but what's lacking is the specific application, either from a demographic standpoint or geo standpoint or, vertical standpoint. So I really specialize on that and say, okay, how blockchain can help, food, fashion, art, automotive, like everything that Italy is known about. And we issued that, we released that a year ago. So it became one of the best sellers on Amazon. And, it's great. So I get invited now to a bunch of schools and, some government celebrations and things like that to kind of talk about it. But I think it was written in Italian, so it was easy for them to understand, right? Because not a lot of Italian can speak English. And on top of that, it was specific to the verticals, right? And one of the things I really like about books, because I don't necessarily like reading boring books. Who likes reading boring books? Nobody, right? I try to kind of make it really practical for business people, right? And say, look, I want to adopt blockchain. How do I do that, right? So things like having a cheat sheet at the end of each paragraph or at the end of each chapter, make it easy to kind of grasp it. Definitely not the book for techie and nerds and stuff like that. Very practical, because if you want adoptions, you need to break it down and make it easy. That's why Coinbase is a $60 billion company, because they made something so difficult so easy, right? So that's the whole concept. And we're now talking to a publisher here in the States to kind of translate it and kind of made it available to the rest. There's a lot of companies that work within those verticals. So it's actually really beneficial to a lot of other companies. So we're looking at translating in English. And when it is, I'll send you a copy.
Well, I can't wait to read it in English, and maybe I'll just learn Spanish. Or, sorry, Italian. Forget Spanish. Learn Italian and be able to read this book. But I'm excited. I'm excited for this. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the future of this incredible new world of NFTs. Working with you and your team at NFT Pro. To really work with all of these amazing global brands that you're working with. So, Christian, thank you so much for joining our 76 Capital Leadership Series.
Great to be here. Thanks, Wayne.
It was awesome having you on the show. And remember, if you're an entrepreneur, an athlete, a student, or someone like Christian who's truly doing the next thing, we want to talk with you. Whether that's in the sports betting industry, the esports industry, the sports tech world, the sports media industry, reach out to us at 76 Capital. Let's see if we can help each other. So once again, my name is Wayne Kimmel, and thank you for tuning into this edition of the 76 Capital Leadership Series. And Christian, again, thank you so much. And like Christian does, you got to get out there and just go make it happen, because Christian Ferri is the CEO of NFT Pro, the #1 enterprise white label NFT solution for global brands. And stay tuned for some incredible news coming out of NFT Pro in the future. Again, this is Wayne Kimmel. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks.